It's the Infinite Podcast. Go tell your friends. It's the Infinite Podcast. My God, it never ends. It's the Infinite Podcast with Rob and Cork the Kid.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite Podcast, the podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom. I almost forgot the intro. From movies, comics, TV shows, video games, we got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here, as always, with Court. And you might be wondering, looking down at the episode title and more importantly, the length of why the heck is this episode so short? Well, because we don't have a ton to talk about today, because we're at a crossroads of our it's not a career of our podcast at the very least, because as you know, in the last few weeks there has been a writer's strike going on, and since the writer's strike has been going on, there is now an actor's strike on top of it. So basically the entirety of Hollywood is shut down over this, and it's kind of thrown obviously a wrench into our plans, which obviously is furthest from importance right now, but we have made the decision to not go forward with our episode that we were going to do this week, nor any reviews or anything like that for the foreseeable future. We're just going to, obviously, you know, the cool thing about what we do is we do cover a variety of different things. So that being said, we're going to take this week kind of off. So we're just kind of posting what we're talking about right now. And then next week, we're going to start reviewing comics, reviewing video games for the foreseeable future is the two things we're going to be focusing on. It's honestly a couple things that we've been wanting to get to for the longest time. I mean, a little behind the curtain, one of our test episodes before we officially launched the podcast was an episode we did on Spider-Man Life Story. Right. And to this point, it's the only episode we've ever done on a comic in force, other than we did an appearance on another podcast where we talked about Captain America Civil War and obviously the Civil War comic. So, and you've probably heard us do a couple video game related things, mostly related around Guardians of the Galaxy when that had come out, The Last of Us, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, those kinds of things. So that's where that's the domain, the universes that we're going to be living in for the next few weeks. At very least, as this thing doesn't seem to be nearing any type of resolution, as it shouldn't, until these writers and actors get the type of thing that they're asking for and really rightly deserve. So I know you have something that you want to say about this, so I'm going to yield the floor to you.
Yeah, I mean, plain and simple, I mean, we stand in solidarity with the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild. I mean, very plain and simple, there's by no means we will cross the picket line, and, you know, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, we don't get any of this without them. There's no stories that we love. There's no movies, characters, anything like that we love without them. So like Rob said, from now on until the foreseeable future, we won't be doing any, you know, with the strike, you know, written companies. We're not doing any reviews for them. And, you know, it's all the big ones. It's, you know, literally all of the massive ones that, you know, we would have talked about week in, week out, that we have talked about week in, week out. We are not doing anything from them. I think it's in, you know, it's not really our best interest. We don't really care about us at this point. It's for them. So that is plain and simple. Like I said, we don't get all these products. We don't get all this, you know, creativity without writers behind the scenes to make, you know, incept these things and, you know, have their creative voice through the pen and through typing it out and, you know, getting it to us. And it doesn't get personified without actors. So if they're not being fairly compensated, if they're not even able to make a living wage as these, you know, people that sometimes, you know, we put on these pedestals, and rightfully so for their talent, but aren't able to have a living wage. And, you know, we have, you know, regular jobs, and we're, you know, somewhat able to support ourselves or able to support ourselves. And, you know, all these people in Hollywood that are, you know, trying to make it, trying to live their dreams, which not every person can say. If they're not able to get a living wage, then we don't see it fit to, you know, help, you know, even if we're doing reviews, help promote these companies that won't even pay them that. Obviously, Fran Drescher being the president of the SGA, one of the big things she talked about was there's no kind of even a meet in the middle. There's no meet in the middle. And, you know, one of the big things that also came out of this was the AI in the room.
Which we've talked about, yeah.
Apparently the entire consensus behind it is from the studios, I believe from Disney, was we're going to take an actor, we're going to pay them for a day, we're going to scan their likeness, and then we're going to be able to use that likeness forever without compensation to the actor, which is very scary, especially to, up and coming actors who might have accepted this, got paid their $300 and, be under contract for them not being able to, give off their artistic voice is very unfortunate. So, by no means do we want that to happen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you covered pretty much all of it, that we needed to talk about. But, like I said, we are with them to the end of the line. Like, it's very simple. I'm going to have fun doing the comic book reviews. I'm going to have fun doing the video game reviews. Obviously I would love to do, what these creators any faceted creator is able to do. But until the studios are willing to compromise and come to a mutual understanding, then, on our end, we're not going to do anything related to it.
Yeah. And I mean, it really just boils down to just how we feel about it at the end of the day. Like, we've gone over the rules and regulations, and I mean, there are ways for us to probably go about doing reviews and stuff like that if we so chose to. We're just choosing not to at this point in time, just like you said, out of solidarity. And I mean, I think the thing that, especially as it relates to this, that people get kind of confused about, or maybe they're not understanding, is it's not just the top of the line actors and
that's
writers.
That's one of the big things. Yep.
That are fighting for this. Like, they're not fighting for themselves. Essentially, they're fighting for the people that, like you said, can't make a living wage off of this career, because Hollywood is not so much it's not like the job of kind of glitz and glamour that you would think it is. It's more about the opportunity.
Right.
Is where probably, I don't know, 80 to 85% of these people live.
Right. No, that's a perfect way to put that, is
the opportunity.
Yeah. Majority of them are, not being able to provide for them. Think about some of your actors that just, even, like, I thought about this when I was doing my research. Like, think about your actors that, like, pop up in some commercials you like. Those people just doing that aren't going to be able to provide for themselves. Think about even some of, the actors that, like, show up in this project or this project, and it could be any studio, anything. And you're like, hey, I remember that person from that small role in this thing. These people are not able to provide for themselves. I feel like when we talk about it, we think, like, Brad Pitt, Denzel, Margot, like, the big ones, but, like, that's a small percentage of what there's roughly, what is it in the SGA? I believe it's like 160,000 of them. That's 160,000, and we're looking at a sample size of 100 actors that we think about, because that's who the quote unquote A-listers are. But it's not about the A-listers. It's about everybody just being able to go to work and do the thing that they love. How many of us can say we're doing the thing that we love? And these people are trying to do the thing that they love. And if it's for the sake of entertainment for us, I think the least that these studios can do can compensate them for keeping them rich and getting them money in their pockets.
Yeah, and I mean, it's doubly more important for the writers, because the writers don't make a fraction of what the actors do.
I really want to dive into that next, but go ahead.
No, but I mean, that's the important thing, is the Writers Guild, and this is where it all started, is with the Writers Guild, obviously, and they're also impacted by AI. We've talked about in the past how some studios now are having AI generate pilots, basically, and then basically just bringing writers on as glorified editors, which is not in the spirit of the profession at all. You want a writer and a writing staff that can generate ideas from their own minds, and it just feels like the studios are more and more willing to not have to deal with that, and would rather just pay half the writers half the pay to basically just edit AI generated scripts, and that's not a future that anyone should want to live in.
No. And yeah, I mean, big aspirations of somebody that would want to be in the WGA, like, that's scary. And that's scary that writers have to live like that. One of the big podcasts I listen to on screenwriting, it's incredible, the Screenwriting Lab. And, I've been seeing the posts come through on Facebook, and there's a lot of fear in those posts, because a lot of people that are in that group are screenwriters, are in the Writers Guild of America, and it is very frustrating, and it's kind of sad. I was reading through some of the posts, and it's like you see like this fear that they have in the, in the tones of their words that they're writing, to see how they should proceed, to see that they've talking about, some of them have talked to like agents and stuff like that. But to your point about, how much they make comparatively, like writers are, your inceptors, essentially your creators at the core of it, of any idea that you have needs to get executed, and that doesn't start without a pen to a page or hands to the keypad. So hopefully going forward they get fairly compensated and then some, hopefully. And it's not like, and this whole idea that they're asking for the world is just insane to me. They're just asking to not have their jobs taken away by computers, and they're just asking to be able to provide for themselves and their family. That's it.
Yeah. And you'd think that would be an easy kind of compromise to come to, but the unfortunate thing is about, it's something that I've always heard, but something I truly believe in, is that these big corporations don't get to be big corporations, and these billionaires don't get to become billionaires without kind of squeezing everyone else under them. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially what is happening. Right. So yeah, I mean, that being said, we're again reiterating, standing with the writers, standing with the actors. We're going to shift our focus a little bit in the coming weeks. We don't have a topic for this week, so we're just doing this. Mm-hmm. And then next week we'll figure it out. We're figuring it out as we go, because obviously this, like I said, this whole thing kind of messed with our plans a little bit, but not in a way that makes us, angry or unsupportive of the strike,
not
because
in the slightest.
This is totally minimal compared to what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do with their, not just their careers, but the careers of people years and years and years and years in the future. Yes. Which is, again, another important point, is that they're not necessarily doing it for themselves. They're doing it for future generations, decades down the line. Yeah. That maybe aren't even into acting yet, but may someday get into it. And because of the work being done now, they'll hopefully have a better career to look forward to. Right. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. I think we covered everything. At the end of the day, I just hope that they get not what they want, what they need. That's it. That's very simple. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And obviously you would hope that this gets resolved quickly but fair. I think is probably the best. Mm-hmm. But if this thing drags out weeks, months,
so be it.
It is what it is.
So be it.
Well, the reason we started this whole thing to begin with is because we have no shortage of things to talk about. Right. So we'll always find things. So that being said, we look forward to coming up with what we come up next week and the following weeks after, and whenever the time comes that we can resume doing the reviews and everything, we will. But until then, you can follow us on Twitter at ProjectINF_pod. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
And next week, we'll probably start with a comic next week, just to give ourselves some time to do other things, gather some ideas together, and that's pretty much it. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Peace.